And after that, go back and go from the beginning. Hi. Hello. How are you doing? So this is a little thing that I am gonna give a crack at. This is actually my second attempt, which, you know, honestly, is for the better. The footage is just indefinitely gonna be a little shaky, a little weird. I noticed on the footage that I had done originally that it would go out of focus a bit, but I got cut off a few times. You know, I was already re-recording parts, and there was some footage that I lost too, got a little corrupted, so honestly, I feel like it just will help me kind of mandate this process a little more. This for me is just going to be a space where I can talk about movies, because people have been, you know, thank you to Abby. There is someone in particular, very recently, who suggested me to do this, but my Uncle Harold has also suggested that I do this. Definitely, like, my family and some friends have suggested that I start a podcast. So here I am! There is going to be something else coming out on this channel soon, having to do with the other angle of art that I've been cracking at lately, music. This will keep things in the film area. So, I am very excited to do that. I have a few episodes planned already. You know, I think we'll learn a lot here, you know? So yeah, I mean, let me just get right into it. You can probably see by the title what this one's all about. Now, honestly, I've talked about David Lynch already. If you happen to see my Criterion video, if you happen to see it, where I just did a Criterion Collection review, which also shout out to Daisuke Beppu, who kind of inspired me to do that. And he seems to have gotten over this, but he had a recent lick in his subs. I shouted him out in a community post. I mean, he eclipses my subscriber count, but he does not have nearly the amount of subscribers that he should. I think he is, like, without a doubt, one of, if not the most, like, positive kind of voice in film discussion, even though he's really only usually talking about Criterion films, although sometimes that's not the case, and that's a pretty broad range of films anyway. Yeah, should I move in closer? Yeah, I think this is good. Forgive me, too, if looking into the camera is cring at all, but, you know, that's just going to be the way it is for now. I have to see, you know, how it feels, okay? So, yeah, David Lynch is a filmmaker that I love, that have always kind of throughout my life have had some sort of allure to, some sort of connection with, whether I knew it or not. And, you know, I love well, for one, he's a filmmaker that is very easy to pigeonhole. You know, and excuse me, by the way, I'm gonna stutter with this one just because I pretty much recorded this whole thing before, so I'm trying to rekindle the same thoughts, but also try not to say them the same exact way. So forgive me for that. But you know, David Lynch is a filmmaker that can easily be pigeonholed now more than ever, even though I do think a lot of people love him more than they ever have. But at the same time, it's a lot easier to pigeonhole him now in his old age because he was always weird. So it's easy to write someone off if they're weird. But now he's old too, so forget about it. He's an old kook. Oh no, his films are all weird, man. They don't mean anything, man. So you know, I personally feel like that's a little unfair, especially because not all of his films have a surreal approach. But even the ones that they do, look, there is the other side to that coin, the overanalyzer, we'll call it. I mean, no one, you know, people have any view on a film, really, can potentially be valid. Um, but, you know, some people, I guess, sometimes reach more than others, pull things into their analysis that maybe didn't really have much to do with the film originally to begin with, but I mean, whatever. If they see a through line, that's okay. Um, but with that, you know, with a lot of people who get really caught up in what it all means with the Lynch, for me personally, I really think that, and I said this in the Criterion video, I am going to echo some of those thoughts as like David Lynch Criterion's makes up a considerable portion of my Criterion collection. He's clearly one of my favorite filmmakers. I don't know if he is my definitive favorite, but he is no doubt one of them. Very key for me personally. So, with that, I think that he honestly, you know, with the films, what I was trying to say, I'm sorry, I gotta catch myself when I do that, trailing a little bit. No, I personally think that as surreal as some of his films can get, this isn't the case every single time, but usually, when Lynch makes something really surreal, I do think he is just showing us a inherently very simple idea just through the most surreal lens possible. And I will discuss some of those examples as we go. I am also going to start with 4 shorter projects of his that I personally really love, and then I'll get into the rankings. And you know, the videos, I mean, the movies in my Criterion Collection video, the David Lynch movies that I talked about, are also pretty much my favorites. So if you've seen that, you've already heard which ones are my favorites, but this is still an excuse for me to talk about them. So, with that, let's get started. Okay. So, the first short film that I have here on my Letterboxd list, my which you which you can follow if you want. You know, I'll leave it in the description. Yeah, okay. Looking at this first one, it always gives me whiplash to see this project. It is not the film Whiplash, as that is not by David Lynch. So quit thinking about it. But Rabbits from 2002. This is some old coffee, by the way, that I made for a intermission segment for the original recording of this podcast, which has now been corrupted and scrapped. And this is like the little bit that I had left. This is like 5 hours old now. Like all right, I'll take a little sip of it, if you dare me. All right. So yeah, rabbits. I mean, look. It's this. If Rabbits was your first David Lynch, I can understand being like, I don't really know about this guy. It is a web series that Lynch posted to his own website, where all the dialogue is just scrambled. But even if if you mixed it together, it'd kind of just be this weird, like you're kind of barging in the like climax of a soap opera type of plot, interrupted with some random like satanic moments. It's really jarring. It is an insanely strange project. Um, I do get this weird kind of enjoyment out of it, though, out of just watching three people with these super realistic looking bunny heads on them, like just sitting in like a room with one camera that rarely ever cuts. And they're just kind of nodding their heads and everything. It is average Lynch content, but yeah, it does give me enjoyment still. I've only made it through it once. I will be fully honest with you, but I do think it is worthy of note because again it is just so jarring, and to be fair, that really is like that may be the extent of it with rabbits, but that's fine, a room of people with rabbit heads talking a bunch of gibberish with a few satanic parables. I don't know, maybe that didn't need to exist, but who's to say it shouldn't? Am I right or am I right? So, oh, I put my phone back in my pocket. What was the other one? What was the next one? I forget. Oh, yes, okay. So, I will move on to The Grandmother now, which is an earlier project from Lynch, from 1970. And it was just a bizarre film in a much different way from Rabbits. It's so much darker, literally, even though it actually has this very touching core to it, because the style of it, everything again is so literally dark and gothic, like gothic type of dark. And there's not really a lot of talking. It's just based on this really fucking insane music. But even though you're watching something that just really goes balls to the wall with how crazy it is still like ultimately this kind of sweet little short film just about like kids, but people as well who feel like there is an absence of love in their lives. It has interestingly, it has a nice heart to it, or maybe not interestingly at all, as I think that's also, at least for me, what really drags me to Lynch. Why I would say he's one of my favorite filmmakers is because to me, he captures the human spirit in a way that just feels so genuine and true, even if things can get so dreamy and nightmarish. Like it feels there is the grounded element to Lynch, as bizarre as it gets, will always be the heart that he displays. That is what I personally feel watching his films. And The Grandmother's honestly a fine example of that. Even Rabbits has some weird love story going on. That's kind of the point. I just can't tell what the heart is because all the fucking dialogue is scrambled. So after that, oh wait, I know what the next one was. The next one was going back to 2002, I believe. I'll check. I'll check. I gotta check. Yeah, 2002. A busy year for Lynch on the internet because now this was probably aired on his website too, but Dumbland was David Lynch dipping into like the David Firth type, like Newgrounds era animation, and also like that feel. Um, it is something that I would describe, again, another little web series, hilariously on Criterion. We need a physical Criterion of Dumbland. Please, I am fucking begging you, please make that happen. I would buy that. It is funny. It's not for everyone because there's a really blunt nature to Dumbland. In a way where it just feels so angry. It really feels like Lynch was just fucking pissed off at like everything, I guess, when he made that, and just, you know, voiced that through this like Neanderthal of a fucking main character who's just yelling and screaming. But I don't know, I get a lot of silly, funny charm out of it, honestly, especially because it has that old internet animation feel. So I loved it. Pretty much all my friends, the regulars of CG, fucking hated it, which was even funnier for me. You know, which, again, like, expected. You know, it's not going to hit for everyone because it is weirdly violent and angry, and not that these things inherently turn off my friends, but it's or everyone else for that matter. It just, the way it's displayed in Dumbland will kind of it's a curveball, honestly. It really is. But yeah, there's still a charm. Like, even in Dumbland, there is still a charm. So the last shorter project, it's technically feature length because it's 50 minutes. But Industrial Symphony #1, The Dream of the Brokenhearted, is a conjoined project between two artists who, along with David Lynch, who are absolutely essential to his career. I mean, essential. These two were some of the glue in his work, and we lost them in 2020. But they both, you know, at least live very long lives. Hopefully, very happy ones too. Julie Cruz and Angelo Badalamenti. Julie Cruz, we lost her earlier in the year, or somewhere in the middle of the year, and Angelo Badalamenti was like right at the end, and that was kind of what caused David Lynch to I guess quit. Yeah, I guess quit doing his YouTube channel for now. You know, he took a break for the holidays, but he stopped right before the holidays, like a day or so after Angelo, and he used to recommend, you know, music on his weather report. David Lynch's channel is so great. The weather reports are amazing, and you know, the number of the day is a lot of fun, and he posts shorts on there too. But sometimes he'll be very blunt about the you know, state of the world, or if there's an artist that he loves, whether he was just a fan or that he worked with them. If he loses them, he, you know, will be sure to say something heartfelt. And you know that the I think it was actually even before the news about Angelo came out, but he had died. He was dead though, and David Lynch had known, and he just said, yeah, today for the music recommendation there will be no music. And then what do you know, Angelo Badalamenti is gone. The music is gone. But Industrial I need to read the title to know the name. Industrial Symphony Number 1, The Dream of the Brokenhearted. Oh, I'll remember that. It is a way to remember their lives, though, because it kind of just focuses on the music and the art that the three of them would make together. It's not just Angelo and Julie aiding to Lynch's art, and again, sort of solidifying it. It is conjoined art between the three of them. It is as much a David's project as a director. It's a recording of a stage play, and there's all these crazy stage effects and things going on. It has a little story. You see a little intro, like a pre-filmed intro with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern. But it's just Julie singing her songs, and a lot of which were heard, throughout Lynch works up until that point. It was made in the mid-90s. Industrial Symphony, and Angelo, of course, is helming the score, doing the live music, and it's a little piece, I guess you could call it, that if I had seen it maybe a year ago before they passed, I would just say, okay, that was a nice, sort of tribute to each other in a way, just a celebration of their work as a unit. But now, after they passed, it definitely has a sadder cadence to it, especially because so many of those songs are just so beautiful. So I think I can leave it there. If I think of any other points for those short films, I will bring them up. But now, it's what you all been waiting for. Okay, so, this one that starts us off at the bottom, which none of these, I dislike none of these. I'm gonna get this out of the way. Everyone could guess, if you know David Lynch films, everyone could guess which one this is gonna be. But my reasons, I think, are a little different. That would be David Lynch's Dune. I do not by any means hate this movie. I do, I can understand being disappointed by it if you're a fan of the book and you were around when the movie came out. So I could see a lot of disappointment, and Jodorowsky's Dune, would have really, that probably would have pissed off a lot of book fans, but I think that would have undisputably, that would have been a remarkable film. Don't worry about why that cut just happened. Yeah, even if people didn't like Jodorowsky's Dune, if it had come out, I feel like, which if you want to learn about that, there's a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune. It seems like it would have been great. It had a whole crazy cast, Mick Jagger, Salvador Dali, what's his face, Orson Welles. It would have been 6 hours. It would have, it had all these set designs by fucking Geiger, who, some of these things trickled into Lynch's film. But yeah, I feel, I wish we could have seen that version, because then I feel like the film people would have had a happier experience with it, because there are the book fans who want to go see an adaptation, and there are the film fans who just want to go see a film that they've heard about that's based on a story that they've heard is great. But look, is it kind of fucked over by a 80s studio? Yes. But I don't see why people blatantly blame Lynch. If you don't like the parts that feel more like Lynch, then alright, to each his own. But if you're gonna say that Lynch went out of his way to ruin that, what the fuck are you even talking about? Obviously, even as a self-admitted, not a fan. Self-admitted, not a fan of Dune. He regrets how that movie turned out. He genuinely wanted to make something that people loved, even if he himself did not love the source material. That, to me, shows an incredible commitment. Um, so not only is there his heart persevering through the story, and you have the fucking Toto and Brian Eno soundtrack, which is pretty gnarly. But the cast in that original Dune, I do think is pretty magnificent, especially Kyle MacLachlan, as Paul. It was David Lynch's first collaboration with Kyle MacLachlan, and man, they really, really kicked it off. I mean, look, yeah, it's not maybe the best performance of all time, but it's a damn good performance. It's a great performance. I think he nails that character of Paul. His poofy wig is a little weird, but, like, that's it. And even still, it reminds me of, like the 80s Devilman OVA kind of poofy hair, like Pokemon Red and Blue sprites kind of hair, I don't know, I don't mind it. At least I thought it kind of had a silly charm to it, Yeah, there were definitely parts that were riddled with, again, 80s cheese, but 80s Hollywood studio cheese, which, yeah, obviously that fucking sucks and is icky, but I think he made overall a fine film. It's obviously, like, how entertained you are by it. It is subjective, but I think overall the talent that went into it, mixed with all the business fuckery that went into it, I do think it kind of evens out to a fine film. Yeah, it's not a film that I'm going to be watching all the time. The new Dune is definitely a more solid film. I am very excited for the new one, and I'm wondering what they will do with the series, like adapting, if Denis will keep adapting Dune books, especially after the trilogy that's centered around Paul. No, everyone says that that's a little too crazy, but gosh darn, and I haven't read it, so I can't say for sure, but I have heard what each of those Dune books are about, and it does get a little silly, I won't lie. So, yeah, look, if you liked that new Denis Villeneuve Dune, but you haven't seen the original, and you feel like, I don't know, if you were really a fan of the movie, then I would suggest, yeah, maybe you give it a shot. If you're really a fan of the book and you've just watched Denis Dune, for one, I would suggest Jodorowsky's Dune, the documentary. But I would also say try Lynch's Dune. I mean, there are a few scenes. There's only one that I can think of off the top of my head, but there is a scene that is, like, just straight ripped out of Lynch's Dune in the new one. There were a few, but again, the one that I remember off the top of my head that to me felt executed in pretty much exact same way. And they come from the same book, so obviously these scenes are going to kind of mirror each other. But there's still also cinematography and blocking and editing in these things, and how you build the tension, music and lack of music, and all these things. And the approach that Denis Villeneuve took to the scene of Paul kind of having to, there's a little robot flying around the room, whatever it is. I don't know if it's a robot or not, some weird fucking Dune thing with a needle that'll kill you. That scene feels ripped straight out of Lynch's Dune. It feels like Denis was trying to pull from the book as much as he could. There's a smidgen of Jodorowsky's Dune in there. And it also comes from a place of a guy who was a fan of Lynch's. So yeah, I there's value in there. There really is. I do think so. Sorry, haters. Yeah. So after Dune, let me check my letterbox to make sure this fucking website decide my opinions for me. I made this list. It's my opinions. Wild at Heart, yeah, would probably be the next one. Because Wild at Heart, it doesn't necessarily like make me cry or anything like that. I think it's a really fucking funny film. It's maybe David Lynch's funniest. It's the only one that I would describe as a partial comedy, even though a lot of what he makes has very comedic elements. David Lynch's sense of humor is great. But I do think that, yeah, that for me personally, that is my favorite aspect of Wild at Heart. And, I think for the fact that Nicolas Cage and Willem Dafoe are together in a movie is enough. Then you add that they are together in a movie directed by David Lynch. I am sold. And Laura Dern is definitely like the heart of the film, because the rest of the film is pretty wacky, pretty funny, a little brutal, even pretty violent. But she is there to play the classic David Lynch angel of a woman, essentially, which exists in a lot of his films. And then, you have, Cheryl Lynn coming in as a literal... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Cheryl Lynn Finn is... the woman who plays Audrey in Twin Peaks, and she plays the girl in the accident in Wild at Heart, and that's a really great, captivating little scene. Again, another curveball, a real jab, if you will. It's Cheryl. Oh my God, I can't believe I've forgotten her name. I mean, what the hell? Yeah, Cheryl Lee. Okay, yeah. I said Cheryl Finn earlier. It's Cheryl Lynn Finn and Cheryl Lee. Cheryl Lee, and sorry if you were hearing all that shit, by the way. This is a makeshift set, people, okay? Cheryl... I've done myself in. Cheryl Lynn... Cheryl Lee... Jesus. Fucking, what's happening over here? Cheryl Lee. Okay? She's in this film as literally an angel. And another very funny scene. The whole ending of Wild at Heart is pretty fucking goofy. Kind of just feels like Lynch needed to take a bit of a chill pill, if you will. As I know he made that movie around the time there were some debacles going on with Twin Peaks. So, yeah, I don't necessarily get the same emotional fucking roller coaster from it as I do from some of Lynch's other works, but I do think it is quite fun and funny, and it's one of the only films that you see Nick Cage and Willem Dafoe together, so that alone makes it a treasure. Like, absolutely. No question. Absolutely not. So, next is Inland Empire, which, yeah, I mean, it's a little lower on here because this one is admittedly a bit more challenging. I will not lie. Although I do think this one is quite the blunt example of what I was talking about earlier, which is a film that is extremely surreal, and he's really ripping you all over the place. But to me, this is a film about really just one thing. I mean, there is a few other things that it tackles, at least, but if you want a main through line for the film, I just believe it is a film about someone suffering a sort of personality psychosis amidst being an incredibly committed actor, we'll say. And I think it's definitely a really ambitious project. It happens to feature scenes from Rabbits, actually, which is a lot of fun. I personally, when it comes to Lynch and his meta commentaries, I think that Inland Empire is a pretty explicit example of that. But I definitely don't base all of my views on his films on a meta framework. Again, that doesn't mean that if you do, your views are invalid. You're allowed to view it however you want, especially if that's like what you're feeling. Like, oh, I'm seeing all these meta connections. Like, okay, but well, that's what you see. Okay. I think again that is there, deeply in a work like Inland Empire. I think meta commentaries are in everything. The camera made a weird noise. I think meta commentaries are in most things because everyone is going to base a story off of experience, at least most cases. You can pull things out of thin air, but I mean, really, how much does that happen? You twist things that you twist things that you've experienced or stories you've heard, whatever. And yeah, so for me, I think this film is... Well, where was I getting with that, actually? I do believe that this film... Oh, did I? I think I had a bit of a train wreck moment there, actually. I think I went on a tangent, properly lost it, so that's nice. Oh, yeah, no. The meta omen. Yeah, Inland Empire, I think, is like a unquestionably meta film, as it takes pieces from other Lynch films and characters from other Lynch projects and just throws them into this movie, which is about someone kind of getting a little too deep into their role or too deep into their art. So it makes me wonder, how does that reflect Lynch's real life? Was he maybe experiencing this weird kind of deja vu, non-lucid kind of feeling where, because he was basing a lot of his art and characters, from what I understand, off of experiences and people he knows, mainly that, and basing a lot of the characters in his projects off of people he's met. I could see that bringing about a strange, lucid kind of, oh, have I been here before type of feeling. Again, of a deja vu. I don't know. I'm not sure. I admittedly also have to see Inland Empire again. These three films, these three features I've talked about so far, are the ones I've only seen once in full each. I will admit, Inland Empire may be a little bit higher. I do have to see it again. I watched it when I was first really going through Lynch's works, like becoming a big fan after watching Twin Peaks. I started moving on to his movies, and I watched Inland, and I really enjoyed it. I'd love to see the Criterion 4K release, which I think maybe that's the same 4K release that's been put into theaters, which I would definitely love to see Inland Empire in theaters. But I'm not sure if they're the same. Maybe they are, because they're both 4K, so that would be easy if they were made. They were announced like 4K theatrical, remaster for Inland, and then a Criterion 4K. I feel like those are probably the same remaster. So, yeah, I mean, this one, oh Lord darn, yeah, I mean, she really is carrying this one on her back. Also, probably the coolest use of like a Beck song in a movie, even though the scene itself is simple. The scene that the song is used in, Black Tambourine, but it's cool. It feels really cool. You know, that's another thing about David Lynch. Like, he has these surprisingly youthful moments. Like, he feels like a creator 30 years younger than he really is sometimes when he uses like a Beck or a Rammstein song in one of his movies. Even though, you wouldn't expect him to be that kind of guy. I think that shows that he has a real interest in art on the general, that he really does try to push his tastes, and I respect that. And Inland Empire will definitely fucking do that. I think even if you are a Lynch fan, that's gonna test you if you haven't seen it before, and even if you have. Again, I personally sort of already have my answers for a lot of these films, as I find them to mostly be fairly simple, but it's definitely driven some other people I know a little bonkers, so hey. If you want to make it a big mystery, go make it a big mystery. Lynch does make his films in that way, where it is meant to be very interactive mystery, and Mulholland Drive literally only, I think, one version of the DVDs comes with Lynch's 10 official clues to discover the mystery of the film. And yeah, I think that is a lot of fun. And another reason why I would call him one of my favorite filmmakers is that detective approach. Like the films themselves are these escape rooms, essentially. And the only way they're going to get out of your head is if you pick up on those clues, or else it's just going to go by, and you'll just be sitting there like, what the hell? What the hell was that? So, yeah, Inland Empire. I do enjoy it. I really do. And with that, we will move on to the black and white works. I like these about the same, but this one I'll talk about first, because I definitely won't watch it as often throughout my life, as it is a very harrowing experience. That would be The Elephant Man. It's a really, really tough watch, and that's not just for the film. It's a tough real life story, not just that a man had to live like that, but the time he was living in, a man with elephantitis is going to be treated a certain way. Lynch, to me, is the perfect person, and somehow Mel Brooks saw this through Eraserhead. He watched Eraserhead and said, go make a movie, I'll give you money, go make a Hollywood movie, kid. And he made Elephant Man. Even though there is a taste of surreal Lynch in the beginning, the film, for the most part, is the embodiment of that grounded heart that Lynch has. Lynch directs the hell out of the movie. The actors act the hell out of the movie. Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt are both fucking fantastic in the movie. It doesn't feel, it doesn't have the Mel Gibson Passion of the Christ, like, just general torture porn movie kind of effect, where you have these either the torture porn kind of modern Blumhouse horror effect, leaning to more like you're watching these characters that you want to suffer, or the film only attaches you to them so much, or if you have a character that is blatantly sympathetic, out the gate like an Elephant Man. Then you have everyone else as this dramatic bully. Oh, fuck you! But Elephant Man does a great job of balancing that out. That is a compliment to the play as well. But Lynch, you know, brings his own heart to this, adds his own heart to a very heartfelt story. Conjoins them, I guess. But then you have the other side, the angle. Oh well, what were the sides? Let's see. Let me try and remember. Give me a second. Do 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 do. Mel Gibson, that's what it was. You're on the other side of the Blumhouse torture porn, very little sympathy for most, if not all, characters types of films. You also have movies like Passion of the Christ, made by cunts like Mel Gibson that are just saying, "Look at what you did! Look at what you fucking did!" Although we don't know who Mel blames for that one. Am I right? Am I right, Mel? So, yeah, you know, I think that this film, Elephant Man, does a great job of consistently riding within the lines of humanity. I mean, it really, really does. This thing keeps making weird noises over here. Scared the bejesus out of me. No, I really, really, really respect this movie. Again, it's not one I'm going to watch all the time, though, because it is very sad. I've known about it my whole life. I have some family members who do not like David Lynch movies, find him to be very weird, but even they must admit that this is just a masterful film. I love this movie. I really do. And again, I respect it. It goes out of its way to be very human. Yeah, I would love to. I've seen some parts of the Bradley Cooper version. I'd love to see the David Bowie version. These are both plays of the Elephant Man. Yeah, in general, the story is great and worthy of praise. But the film, Lynch really did a great job. And yeah, I mean, again, Mel Brooks the good Mel saw something. He just saw something. The Mel that pisses off the other Mel, actually. Mel, I wonder what kind of feelings Mel Gibson has about Mel Brooks. Alright, I'll stop with that. So yeah, next. Oh yeah, I already said it. We're gonna focus on the two black and white works. So yeah, right, just cutting it above Elephant Man for me. Not just because it's a little easier to watch, but actually because of childhood nostalgia would be Elephant Man. Yes, childhood nostalgia. My uncle showed this film and David Lynch's music video, and the grandmother actually showed me Eraserhead, the grandmother, and the music video for Lynch's like 2012-ish song, Crazy Clown Time or Crazy Clown Party, and they all equally gave me a feeling that my cousin, who you have seen in a few videos before, Tate, a feeling that my cousin Tate voiced when I showed him the music video for the Beatles song I'm the Walrus. When I showed him this music video when we were children, he said that it made him feel unhuman. I was a 10-year-old saying that, and I didn't know what he meant until I was 12 and I saw Eraserhead, the grandmother, and fucking Crazy Clown Time. I honestly, I think it's fucking a lot of fun now. Another one that I would personally say uh, is really truly based on a very simple idea, because Inland Empire does have a little bit of the of you know, sort of a fuck you to Hollywood, and kind of talking about how women are treated in Hollywood, and also the broad meta thing of just pulling in Lynch characters and bringing them into this film, having this lead character kind of warp through her reality and Lynch's realities. But in Eraserhead, to me, the film really is just about it is the most surreal visualization of a man who is deathly terrified of being a father, being a good husband or lover, really having any familial responsibilities. And that, to me, that's it. And it just shows you that in the most surreal, nightmarish, but also dreamy way possible. And I get a kick out of it. I think it's a lot of fun. I do. It is one where, yeah, you're either going to see that and Lynch is going to stick in your brain and never come out again, like what happened with me when I saw this movie. Or, I don't know, maybe you'll pee yourself, I don't know. But I love it, I really do. And it's a interesting directorial debut as well. Jack Dance, who shows up in so many fucking Lynch projects. He was in Dune and Wild at Heart. He was in both of those. A lot of fun in both of those. And yeah, he's eating up the scenery, in my opinion, in Eraserhead. And the fact that, not just him, he didn't just have, because a lot of people have heard the story of the fact that he had to keep that fucking haircut for 5 years. But in a documentary I watched about Lynch, apparently they were just living in Eraserhead land for 5 years. Like, what? Huh? Yeah, what? That would be a fucking nightmare. But maybe not. Maybe if I was the one making that, maybe I would actually love that. Because, you know, that within itself, the idea of art not just being the art you're creating, but the experience going into making the art, the idea of that being a performance within itself, I think that's pretty cool. I wonder if that even comes up on the camera. Alright, here we are, top 5 territory. Yeah, top 5 territory, as I just said, although I will mention, because I did not bring up the David Lynch show, Twin Peaks, just yet, I'll do a bit of a spoiler alert, even though, again, I already spoiled all my views, pretty much, in the Criterion video, but I would say that before we even get into the real nitty-gritty of my truest personal favorites, that as a whole unit, undisputably, Twin Peaks is my favorite. Especially, you know, just the way it changes. The way it changes alone. I mean, so much about it. I talked about in my Criterion video things that I feel reflect my soul, like JoJo Part 4, Electric Dragon, 80,000 Volts being a main one, probably the main one. But the first season of Twin Peaks, I would say, does that too. Impeccable vibes, takes me back to childhood. I grew up in a town that was very similar to Twin Peaks geologically. It was in a northern state. It was in a mountainous, woodsy, very small town area. There were not that many crazy people there, but there were a few characters for sure. But overall, it was there was something about it that was homey. It was most of the nice parts of Twin Peaks, you know. And to be fair, I wasn't old enough at the time, I guess, to know the underbelly of the town I had lived in. But that's besides the point. I felt like I had to throw that out there, even though, again, I've already said what my favorite Lynch stuff is. But really, truly, and honestly, like, all of Twin Peaks is my favorites. But now I'm just going to rank my favorite feature films kind of in order. But, I mean, there's some of these are kind of neck and neck. And, you know, I really don't have to divide these away from Eraserhead too far either, because my childhood nostalgic love for it alone is enough. It's enough to keep it pretty high up with the rest of these that I'm going to mention now. So I would probably say that Lost Highway would be the next one up, because it is also not one that necessarily makes me cry or anything, but it is a really cool film aesthetically. It is a pivotal film, and something else I mentioned in the Criterion video, the era of films that I love, the late 90s to early 2000s edgelord era. I think Lost Highway is key to that era. It's got a fucking bizarre cast. You have fucking Henry Rollins, Richard Pryor, Gary Busey, and there's an actor from Sopranos, Robert something, that is in the film as well, that plays a character who, you know, I definitely was entertained by the first time I watched the movie, Robert Loggia. I was entertained by his character, you know, and had felt tense in the moments where it wanted me to feel tense around his character. But there are a few jokes that his character throws out that, again, it definitely gave me like a chuckle the first time I saw it. But when I saw Lost Highway a few months back in a movie theater, people were fucking roaring at some of the stuff he would say. And also, I mean, I was going to a theater all week that was playing all these classic movies. And the only one that was packed, the only night, was the night that Lost Highway was playing. I mean, come on. The people love it. Yeah, I think this one is, you know, we're getting into some of the I don't want to echo too many of my thoughts that I said in the Criterion video, but this, to me, even though it is maybe a little hard to follow in the first watch, you gotta pay attention, okay? Were you paying attention? No, if you watch it to the end, which most people do when they watch movies, you can start to, oh, okay, yeah, I see how this kind of goes there and this kind of goes there. Because really the main part of it that's confusing is just that it is not told linearly. But other than that, there are, I guess, a few key metaphors in the film that are embodied with characters that have this weird metaphysical presence in the movie, and that may be like, well, what the hell was that? But I don't necessarily take some of those things too literally. You know, I have voiced before that sometimes I just think he is displaying ideas in a very surreal way. And Lost Highway would be anger. There's a lot of anger here, especially, anger directed at the lead character, at himself, at this need to be like this, perfect man, essentially. He's this fucking ripped guy who goes to the club and fucking killing it on the sax, but he can't kill it in bed. He is terrible at fucking, and that is enough to send him off the wall. And it also talks about how silly that within itself is, that men that's all it can take. The fragility of masculinity, of course, the toxicity of some of its elements. Because, you know, we don't want to get confused, everybody, okay? There is such thing as toxic masculinity, but not all masculinity is toxic. Okay, everybody? Okay? Did you find that very helpful? So, I just have such a fun time watching this one again. This is one that I love to watch with other people. I need to show it to more of my close friends. I'd love to watch them watch it. I think this is a fair one to start with. You know, Twin Peaks to me is a good place to start with Lynch, but the show doesn't really let you into what it's getting at for a couple episodes. The first couple episodes aren't bad. They're just laying down the groundwork. So it takes a few hours of watch time to kind of see what's happening. Whereas The Lost Highway, you know, it's a movie, so it's shorter. At least it's a movie that's close to regular movie length. It's 2 hours, you know, in that ballpark. 2 hours 15 minutes, maybe actually. So it's a little longer, but I enjoy it. Again, it doesn't necessarily make me cry, but I think it's kind of cool as hell. The approach, the filmmaking. The filmmaking approach. And yeah, I mean, is there much more I have to say about it? You know, I think the cast is great. I think that, let's see, how many more names can I fuck up tonight? Patricia Arquette is great in the film. She has a good bit to carry on her shoulders as well. And, yeah, I mean, it has this really cool, you know, there's a noir thing to it, but it feels so fresh for its time. I think it balances all that so well. And, yeah, David Lynch using Rammstein in a movie. What do you want? What more do you want, huh? What are you, greedy? Get out of here! So, yeah, I mean, I love it. I really, 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 really love it. I love Lost Highway. So, with that, I will now get into the straight story, which, to me, makes it into my, you know, it gets a little bit deeper in there, a little higher up, because it does pull the emotions out of me. I've seen Lost Highway more, but Straight Story just gives me so much more visceral, emotional reaction. It is not a visceral film, it is just highly emotional. For me, personally, I think it's a highly relatable film. It is a Disney film, so really anyone could watch it. Maybe not a 5-year-old would enjoy it, but a 10-year-old, I think a lot of 10-year-olds would actually get a lot of value in the film. They would be able to recognize the sweetness of the film. It's not very surreal. It's another one that feels very grounded, and it is grounded by its very human nature, its human heart. It's a story simply about a man who, him and his brother have estranged themselves from one another, and he learns that his brother is dying, and he decides that all of that trouble, all of that stuff that was in between them is irrelevant, and he is going to go see his brother because in the wake of death, of you know, only having so much time left with the people you love, how relevant really are these petty differences that we can have with one another. And because of that I think really makes it highly relatable, because, you know, Alan Strait is an older guy, but he comes from a walk of life that, you know, is not necessarily too fortunate for him. He has a daughter played really well by Sissy Spacek, that he is taking care of in her adulthood. She has her troubles, and but at the same time, she supports him because he's collapsing all the time. He's not in the best health himself, so Alan Strait needs someone to watch him. It's based on a true story of a incredible man who weird noise check. We're good. It's based on the true story of a real man who just realized the irrelevance of holding these grudges with people you love, and even though he didn't have money, even though he didn't really know anyone who's in a state that could drive him, he drove cross country on a tractor, on a pretty shit tractor too, at least a very old one. And they were filming in chronological order through the states as they moved through them. They were filming through the locations that he would travel in. There's a beautiful story of him, of the people that the real Alan Strait would help along the way and all these things. It's a really beautiful story. It's such a good film. Yeah, it's on Disney Plus, so you can go watch it pretty easily. Oh no, it is not on Disney Plus anymore. Never mind. Maybe it'll finally be getting some sort of special release soon, because I mean, Criterion loves David Lynch. They got like fucking all of his stuff, but they don't got the Straight Story. You need the Straight Story. At least Straight Story needs a 4K. Come on. Very human story, very touching. Features, what is the actor's name? Features, Harry Dean Stanton is in the film. He shows up in a few Lynch films. Richard Farnsworth, plays Alan Strait. Alvin Strait, my God. Alan Strait! Alvin Strait. Well, that's fun. Everett McGill. He's in Dune. He's in Twin Peaks as the King, Eddie. King. And he has a nice little, another human role. Human piece. One of the many human pieces in David Lynch's, in the many human arts that Lynch's has made. Lynch's. Nice. Yeah, I love the Straight Story. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful film. It really, really is. And again, it is, if you're not the biggest fan of the surreal, or if you at least want to kind of work your way up to that, this is another one that I'd say is great to start with, because it is highly accessible and anyone could watch it. So, here we are with the top 3. Again, these have already been said, but whatever. It's just an excuse for me to talk about these. And I'm going to talk about, actually, the next 2 kind of at the same time, because I do like them about the same, I think. I've seen one of them more, so I technically put it higher. But they both enrich me cinematically, but for kind of 2 opposite reasons. So Mulholland Drive and then Blue Velvet. They both enrich me cinematically because I think they are a peak in 2 different ways. I think Mulholland Drive is the most David Lynch thing. You could argue Inland Empire is, and I wouldn't necessarily argue against that. But I don't know. There's something about Mulholland Drive that for me, every second, like, because even, or more so than Mulholland Drive just feels like itself. Even though Inland Empire came out before Twin Peaks: The Return, it kind of shares those feelings. Whereas Mulholland Drive is just this pocket, you know? It really is another highly ambitious project of Lynch's. This is one that I would say, although it does kind of have one sort of priority, one idea that it is mostly showing to you in a surreal way, a loss of identity, even more akin to Ingmar Bergman's Persona than Inland Empire. You know, you're focusing on two characters, but you're not sure if one of them is real, one of them isn't, if they're the opposite people, if they're the same person, you know. But it also, I think, focuses more on its other elements. I do think it kind of actively creates a mystery more rather than you're just sort of along the ride of a surreal experience. I think I think Mulholland Drive really is trying to give you a total picture of not just these people, but this really genuinely fucking terrible system that kind of encapsulates them and is slowly going to ruin them and corrupt them. Even if it, you know, doesn't kill them, it'll ruin them in some way. It'll absolve them of humanity in some regard. In some ways, this is one of Lynch's darkest from a subject matter, in my opinion. Talking about the prostitution of Hollywood, at least how it prostitutes its actors, its performers, and it's tragic in a way. I mean, it really is, because it's a film about dreams, like about aspirations, and you know, about how something like Hollywood will take those and I guess just fucking rip you apart. I don't know. I never went to Hollywood. I spent some time in New York. I felt like I did all right over there, honestly. You know, but there was an underbelly. I did notice it right away. I think once you participate in the industry of, say, Hollywood or something as big as Hollywood, yeah, you are going to see an underbelly quite immediately. And for someone who, you know, at that point had seen a good bit of the industry, had been woven through it in a few different areas, yeah, I could see this need to want to jab at it a bit. And yet there is this detective kind of feel to it, that you are this detective kind of as the movie moves along, like you are the one that this movie, it's like a report almost, you know, and you just kind of have to sit there writing notes. Oh yeah, okay. So Blue Velvet, though, Blue Velvet enriches me in a way where it feels like Alfred Hitchcock like came back to life and made a really gritty 80s movie, but counter to what 80s studio shithouse movies were like. That to me is what Lynch's approach to Blue Velvet reminds me of anyway. It feels like a Lynch take on a Hitchcock movie. And to me, Blue Velvet is a true definitive 80s movie. There's some big 80s blockbusters. I mentioned this in the Criterion video. There are some of the big ones that people love, that are worthy of the love. Okay, there's Aliens and fucking Terminator and other ones. But Blue Velvet, that to me, when I think of peak 80s cinema, and the best that the world of cinema had to offer in that decade, Blue Velvet is a star example. I think it is arguably a perfect film. It is so ripely tense. I love to watch people watching it. The performances are fucking outstanding. Once again, fuck you, Roger Ebert. He's dead, but, you know, he was a bit of a hypocrite about the movie. He wrote a movie, you know, that is, titties galore, worked with a ex-Playboy photographer, and made a movie entirely about hot 60s women, like women from the 60s, and their big old titties. And then David Lynch makes a film about that focuses on an abused woman, and Roger Ebert was losing his fucking mind. So fuck him for that a little bit. But I think this movie is fantastic. I think these are both incredible movies. I think these are masterclass films. Mulholland Drive is a tougher sell for sure, but everything about it, I would not. There are parts of Inland Empire that definitely, even though I think it again is fairly simple, there maybe are scenes or little moments that can leave me scratching my head, but Mulholland Drive just feels so purposeful, down to every little orb-like movement that the camera does. It's so well controlled. It's like a more subtle version of kind of what Gaspar Noé tries to do with his camera in films like Enter the Void and Climax and Irreversible, where the camera is floating around. It literally is meant to feel like you're this orb that just kind of exists in the space of the movie. And Mulholland Drive does that a little bit, but it does it in a softer way. It moves more like a seesaw as well, and the camera is not handheld. It's clearly by machine, and this seesaw kind of orb movement can be really hypnotic. I think things like that alone in the movie, I just adore about it. I adore it. And Blue Velvet, I mean, has perfect editing. The cut early on with the scissors, I love that. Oh, so good. Tastes so good. I love it. I love it. Okay guys, here it is. Alright, favorite movie, let's go, of 2022, David Lynch, here it is, yeah, whoa, this is crazy, dog, what's happening right now? Oh, it's the old coffee from earlier. Yeah, so, without echoing my thoughts too much from the Criterion video, I will never watch Fire Walk with Me and not have an incredibly visceral, emotional reaction to what's happening. I mean, it stings and it hurts, and forgot to mention Stinging Dude earlier, but, yeah, I mean, I think the performances are absolutely fucking astounding. You know, David Lynch has actually talked about, he hopes to make a director's cut someday. There are just a couple scenes from the missing pieces that I think if you threw them into Fire Walk with Me would make it I guess objectively a better movie. You know, for me, my favoritism of this is definitely based on the visceral emotional reactions that the film gives you. I mean, it is so brutal, you know, it's not just a stab at the cable business that fucked over Lynch. It's a real stab in heart to everyone who was invested in this world. I mean that in a good way, because I know a lot of people, fans, were disappointed with Fire Walk with Me. But I think that film is an experience like most other David Lynch films that you're not going to get anywhere else. And Fire Walk with Me, I mean, really, to me personally, it has this. I mean, for one, I don't really think you can enjoy the film if you don't watch the show. You do need to watch the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks to really enjoy the movie, I feel. You could enjoy things about it. It would be pretty weird, and you wouldn't be able to follow some of what's happening because it is partially a sequel, even though it is a prequel film. There are sequel elements to it, but you know, aesthetically, there's a lot to appreciate. This is one of, well, I mean, no, Twin Peaks is my favorite soundtrack by Angela Badalamenti, and Julie Cruz as well is featured throughout the soundtrack. They bring Twin Peaks to fucking life. I mean, seriously, the theme for Twin Peaks, all of the songs that use the doom 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 doom, right? All the songs in Twin Peaks that use that melody, or the do 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 do. Right, that. Oh my god, sitting here at fucking 1 in the morning in the room alone. Fucking. You know, so the music in Twin Peaks is phenomenal, and Fire Walk with Me features 2 of my favorite pieces of music that have ever been used in a film, ever. And that is The Pink Room and Blue Frank. I think both of these songs are just insane. They're so cool. They're genuinely some of the coolest tracks I've ever heard. And like, there's just such an incredible brooding nightmarish nature to it, and I'm pretty sure Lynch is jamming on the guitar. There's also real indication too in Fire Walk with Me, the song that Angela sings. That song is great, but all the songs Julie Cruz sings throughout Twin Peaks all like they've always just sent the waters flowing for me. And Fire Walk with Me, I mean, there's so many different angles where it's attacking you emotionally. It's a movie where, yeah, you can isolate a few moments like, oh, look, there's a shot where it zooms in on a monkey. And yeah, you could point that out as silly, and it is, but like, if you don't buy into the emotion of it, you won't buy into the movie, and that's fine. I haven't read what Tarantino said about it. But I started seeing all these articles that were like, the one Lynch movie that Tarantino hates, and it's like, yeah, from that perspective of, oh, every script has to be this, like, I mean, focusing on the script before anything else, focusing on your story. That to me, a lot of that is relevant. And Tarantino focuses on the dialogue too a lot, which is important. Dialogue and story are important, but to me, approach, presentation, aesthetics, the general direction, how Lynch helmed and controlled the actors and the tools and the sets and all of that, how he controlled these things and used them and helmed them. And Tarantino has his great films, but he's also only made like 4 movies. Like, I mean, his movies are pretty original in a lot of ways, but from an aesthetic angle, he shoots other people's movies. You know, Lynch gives you movies that you've never seen before. Pulp Fiction is a movie that a lot of people had never seen before. I'm not saying Tarantino hasn't done that, but when he, you know, sometimes when people get spicy with their opinions, I get a little spicy back. I mean, not like it's like a back and forth, like I'm talking with Tarantino, like, yeah, hey dude, I saw that Fire Walk With Me review you did, like, he obviously, like, has no idea who I am, and he also could have been, like, super charitable to the film, and I'm just over here, like, well, you've only made 4 films, asshole, but no, seriously, though, David Lynch, like, always, even though his films all feel like David Lynch films in their own way, they're David Lynch films. Like, that's it. You know, Quentin Tarantino wears his inspirations on his sleeves, and that genuinely is not an insult. I think there's plenty of merit in both, actually. I just did, at this point in my life, kind of levitate towards Lynch. And, you know, getting into film, I mean, Tarantino is essential for me. Yeah, Kubrick was too. You know, Kubrick still is, and Tarantino still is in his own ways. But Lynch just has this incredibly unique, surreal, potent nature that is, again, also grounded by a human heart that I rarely see amongst the greatest filmmakers. Most of the greatest filmmakers are callous fucks, so they're not making very heartfelt cinema most of the time. This isn't the case always, but with a lot of, I don't know, there are plenty of cynic filmmakers. I mean, Kubrick's a great example. He has some heartfelt films, and a lot of them are extremely cold, you know? Lynch is brutal and as visceral as he can be. It's still touching. It's still, for me, again, that part is going to be completely and absolutely subjective. But again, and also as a filmmaker, I think he brings a lot to the table that is completely unique to him. So I think that's it. I think that's it. Another huge shout out to the cast as well, because my God, they deliver a lot of blows in this movie, you know. Yeah, I don't really want to say much about it because you get the full effects from watching the show for sure. That's definitely how it was meant in the context of the series. But man, if you feel inclined to watch any of these films, I would love to hear about it. Once again, thank you to the people who told me to do this. Thank you to Daisuke Beppu and any other random Criterion Collection video I happen to see. I have a few more of these coming up. Although I think I will just post these weekly. I'm thinking Thursday night at 8 block. I feel like that's a good day and time for a podcast to drop, maybe. You know, especially something that maybe isn't like things blowing up in your face. You know, it's like a late night kind of film talk, you know. And that's what it'll be. I don't think I'll tease any other ones, so I think I will just let it go. Guys, thank you so much. If you watched all this, really, thank you. I am excited to do these, really. Yeah, I lost an hour, or yeah, over an hour and a half's worth of footage last night, and I was kind of dreading doing this again, but then just being in it again, it is really cathartic for me to do this. And I mean, what is it still going even? Yeah, nice. All right. I am happy. I am satisfied. Take care, everyone.
No kidding.